Lucy Letby, A Fertile Place to Murder. Those of you who have had the benefit of following my detailed and thorough, fastidious analysis of Lucy Letby have accessed the conclusions. What is she? And why did she kill? Accordingly, you will be furnished with the knowledge that Lucy Letby, as per my detailed determination, is a narcissist with psychopathic tendencies and a sadistic streak. This also enabled you to understand that the reason that Lucy Letby killed was by virtue of seeking to assert control over those around her in accordance with the first prime aim of the narcissist, to nullify threats to control potentially posed by those around her, again, the first aim of the prime aims, namely control, and to seek fuel by way of people's responses, the second aim of the prime aims, and in some instances to maintain her facade of being a kind and helpful and caring person, which is a residual benefit, residual benefits being the fourth of the prime aims. Accordingly, because she needed to maintain control over people that came upon her radar, the victims themselves, the victims' families, colleagues, and she needed to draw fuel from them, her narcissism directed her to kill. She was placed in a situation where the very presence of people who had a family, that their family had just started or was being added to, that they had a relationship together, that they were married, posed a threat to Lucy Letby, because part of her psychological makeup as a narcissist was a fragility to the suggestion that she would never have a family or be married herself. Many people have found this strange, given the fact that at the time of the commission of her crimes, she was a young lady in her 20s. Surely she had plenty of time to find a partner, to get married, and to have children of her own. Nevertheless, it is likely that she feared that she would not have those things because, one, she had targeted a married doctor with whom she was having an affair, who ultimately wouldn't leave his wife, meaning that her love for him was essentially unrequited, although of course as a narcissist she's not actually capable of love. And secondly, and more importantly, I explained that her parents have had such an active role in her life, smothering her, telling her what to do, where she should be, assisting her, protecting her, shielding her, riding into battle on her behalf, that they will have in all likelihood interfered in any attempts that she has had to have a boyfriend, to look at possibly becoming married. They probably viewed any potential suitor as unsuitable for her. Now, whilst it is quite common for parents to look at a boyfriend or girlfriend with a degree of scepticism as their little prince or little princess starts out on their romantic journey, they wouldn't go to the full extent of the way that Lucy Letby's parent or parents, dependent on whether there's one or two narcissists at work, in terms of controlling her, suggesting this person isn't suitable, perhaps even forbidding her to have such relationships. Remember, not only did she live with her parents to begin with, but even when she moved away, she was in daily contact with them, and there were occasions where her parents would stay with her at her part of the country. Accordingly, all of this shaped an environment where Lucy Letby found herself in a position where she feared not being able to have a family and feared not marrying. Remember, to you that might seem unrealistic given her young age, but that is what had formed in her mind, and therefore her narcissism had a particular sensitivity to that. This meant that anything that related to the issue of her not having a family or being married posed an extreme threat to control, almost like a particular weak point for her kryptonite, if you will. And therefore her narcissism, as a self-defense mechanism, always sought to deal with that. As I explained in Why Did She Kill, the fact that she was working in a place where she saw people who were in relationships, saw people who were married, and moreover saw people who had families, it was being thrust in her face on a regular basis that she didn't have those things, and thus she was repeatedly reminded of that threat to control. The consequence of that meant that her narcissism had to go into overdrive to ensure that these threats to control, amongst other ones, had to be nullified, and the methodology that it chose was to murder children. This enabled the final assertion of control, the ultimate assertion of control, to be asserted over another human being by killing them, but it also meant that she was able to assert control over the grief-stricken parents, the bewildered and upset responses of colleagues, and also drinking fuel. Her narcissism chose this as the modus operandi. The narcissism will choose lots of different ways to enable a narcissist to get control. Sex and intimacy is a common one because sex is a major weapon of mass seduction, and I explain all about that in my excellent book, Sex and the Narcissist. Sex is commonly used to seduce people, to control them and to keep them under control. Money can be another one, flattery another one, being helpful another one. In some instances, a person's vulnerabilities will be used both for and against them. If a victim explains that they have been abused before to a narcissist, the narcissist will initially demonstrate false compassion and concern. I'm sorry that happened to you. You need never worry about that with me. I'll always ensure that you're looked after. Thus, that false compassion is used in a benign way to manipulate that victim. When that individual finds themselves being devalued, this will be used against them. The narcissist will use the same method of abuse that the victim had suffered previously as a means of getting to the prime aims. If a victim has a fear of the dark, the narcissism picks up on that and uses it against them. If a victim is a particular love devotee, the idea of love, both in terms of providing lots of it and then also withdrawing it, will be used against that individual. If somebody has been with a narcissist previously, you are in effect tenderized for the next narcissist that comes along, utilizing your vulnerability and susceptibility to the wiles of the narcissist, once again against you, both in terms of seducing you and devaluing you. The narcissism is adept at utilizing the circumstances of victims and the environment so that the narcissist can use it to get to the prime aims. And it was no different with Lucy Letby. The environment she found herself on a neonatal ward provided her with the opportunity to get to the prime aims by exploiting the fact that it had both vulnerable victims, i.e. premature children who were defenseless, and grief-stricken parents who perhaps would not be focusing on what was going on to the same extent that they would do if they were not worrying and affected by concerns, anxiety and grief, but also because the environment was one where the staff were overstretched. And this meant that it was easier for Lucy Letby to undertake what she was doing and not be detected because people were overworked. It gave her far greater opportunity to carry out her manipulations against the children because nobody would be around, because again, they were overstretched and under-resourced. It also gave her an opportunity to manage her facade by offering to help out, to provide additional hours, to provide additional cover. And all of that was capitalized upon by her narcissism for the purposes of ensuring that it got the prime aims. In the way that a lioness, when she's hunting, uses the environment to her advantage by hiding in the long grass and waiting to pick out that slow, straggling gazelle that has been cut off from the herd, Lucy Letby's narcissism also would take account and advantage of the environment. And the Times has reported about the fact that there was in effect chaos on the Lucy Letby ward. A senior doctor warned that the neonatal unit where Lucy Letby worked was chaotic, overstretched and unsafe for patients and staff 2 years before the serial killer nurse was suspended. Dr. Alison Timmis, a paediatrician, emailed Tony Chambers, the hospital's chief executive, in December 2015, reporting that staff were in tears because they were being forced to look after more babies than the unit could safely accommodate. In her note, copied into other senior managers, she told him, "Over the past few weeks, I have seen several medical and nursing colleagues in tears. They get upset as they know that the care they are providing falls below their high standards. Staff at the counters of Chester Hospital were chronically overworked, and she felt no one is listening. "This is not an exceptionally busy week," she wrote. "This is now our normal working pattern, and it is not safe. Things are stretched thinner and are at breaking point. When things snap, the casualties will either be children's lives or the mental and physical health of our staff." Letby capitalised on the difficulties the neonatal unit faced to target her victims. Evidence seen by the Times shows she was keen to work nights and weekends and volunteered to do extra shifts to plug staffing gaps, facade management, and also opportunity to get closer to the children. This often left her alone with children she was not allocated to care for, and she used the opportunity to attack and kill them. Many of the incidents were clustered between midnight and 4 a.m. The fact that she was able to do this, that she was able to volunteer so that she could be in a position where it was just her left alone with the children, is her narcissism taking advantage of the environment and generating, in effect, a fertile place to murder. By the time Timothy's email was sent, Letby had murdered 5 babies and tried to kill another 3, one of them twice. She would kill another 2 babies and attack 3 more before being moved off the unit in 2016, after doctors raised concerns about her. Separately, Dr. Sandy Bohin, an expert witness for the prosecution in Letby's trial, has described babies screaming in agony after being attacked by Letby. In her first in-depth interview, the neonatologist and consultant paediatrician said abnormal insulin test results were missed after being sent through the post and filed away in thousands of pieces of paperwork with no computer system in place. Timothy's 2-page email to Chambers, which copied in the medical director Ian Harvey and the other managers, was sent after the paediatrician had worked a 21-hour shift over a Friday and Saturday. She said another colleague worked 23 hours over the same weekend. It's unsurprising with this level of working that not only would people be stressed and not necessarily noticing things that were out of the ordinary, but it would also mean that they would be more amenable to Letby offering to help, and therefore again her narcissism would take advantage of the environment. Highlighting a lack of staff, Tim has said, "We do not meet the national standards for paediatric nurses, neonatal nurses or doctors." Neonatal units should have a specific number of nurses to care for the babies on the ward depending on how sick they are. At the time Tim has sent her email, the ward had 1/5 fewer nurses than it should have done. This is common across neonatal units in England due to nurse shortages. Again, this provides an opportunity for Letby to take advantage of a situation where the staffing levels were too low, that people were overstretched, that they were overworked, and therefore, once again, her narcissism was able to utilise what became a fertile place to murder. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.